You didn't scroll here by accident. You were summoned, not by this video, but by the ache in your chest that's been quietly asking Allah, why does everything that used to feel good now feel so heavy? You're not broken. You're not lost. You're being emptied, because what's been draining you can't follow you where Allah is about to take you. And if you've been disappearing, if your heart feels tired for no reason, if your soul is silent but screaming, this isn't collapse. This is a divine clearing. Because before Allah blesses you, He removes what's secretly bleeding you. Let's talk about what He's trying to show you, before you mistake this sacred unraveling as something going wrong. This is not the end. This is the quiet before your rebirth. 1. When familiar eyes can no longer recognize you, you walk into the same rooms, but they feel heavier now. The voices around you are familiar. The laughter still echoes, the smiles still stretch wide, but they no longer reach your heart. You sit with the same people who once knew every part of you. They knew your silence. They knew your humor. They knew how you carried your pain behind your jokes. But now, they don't know what to say to you anymore. They look at you like you've changed, like you're distant, like your light is too quiet for their noise to reach. And maybe you have changed, but not in a loud, obvious way, not in a way they can see. You've changed where it matters most, on the inside, in the parts of your heart that you stopped sharing. You're not cold, you're not better than anyone, you're not angry or bitter, you've just grown. And now you can see things that you used to ignore. You can feel fake energy. You can sense conversations that drain instead of heal. You can hear Allah's whispers, louder than their compliments. There was a time you craved being seen, being heard, being loved by the very people who now make you feel invisible. But now you've tasted the kind of peace that doesn't need to be proven, the kind that comes when Allah starts turning your attention inward, toward Him. What's happening isn't a loss, it's a shift. You're not being left behind, you're being pulled ahead. You're not cold, you're just tired of shrinking to be understood. They remember the version of you who said yes too often, who laughed through pain, who gave more than you received, just to feel close to someone. But that version of you was surviving, not living. And Allah saw that. He saw your quiet tears. He saw how you lowered yourself just to be accepted in places you were never meant to belong. So He started the separation, not to punish you, but to protect what He's growing inside of you. They say you've changed. And they're right. You're healing now. You're remembering who you were before the world told you what you had to be. And the more you return to that truth, the lonelier it feels. But don't mistake that loneliness for abandonment. It's a spiritual filter. Allah is removing those who were only attached to your broken pieces. Because the whole version of you, the peaceful, aware, sincere version of you, deserves to be surrounded by real love, by hearts that honor your presence, even when you say nothing. So if you feel like no one recognizes you anymore, if you feel unseen in the very places you used to call home, don't panic, don't try to go back, and don't explain your evolution. To those who only understood your pain, Allah is revealing who's real by letting go of who was temporary. This isn't rejection. This is redirection. You're not being isolated. You're being preserved, because the next version of you isn't meant to be born in public. It's meant to be grown in divine silence, where no one can touch it but Him. 2. When what once excited you now feels spiritually heavy. There was a time when it lit you up. That place, that person, that routine. Even the compliments, the messages, the attention, they gave you a sense of purpose, a sense of excitement, something to look forward to. You used to run toward it, with your heart open and your hopes high. It felt like comfort, like light, like a space where your soul could rest. But now, it feels different. What once energized you now drains you. What once brought joy now feels heavy in your chest, like you're carrying something that doesn't belong to you anymore. You don't laugh the same way. You don't talk as much. You find yourself staring at the same screen, but your heart is elsewhere. You're surrounded by the same things, but you don't feel home. This isn't boredom. This isn't random. This is your soul detaching. Allah is peeling you away from what was never meant to be permanent. The sweetness has faded because the lesson is complete, and what was once a blessing has now become a distraction. It's painful. Not because you lost something, but because part of you is still clinging to a version of joy that was only meant to last until you were ready for something higher. That emotional heaviness you feel is your soul whispering, "There's more. Don't stay here. You don't belong in the same circles that celebrate distraction over depth. You don't belong in environments where your soul has to shrink just to feel accepted. And that hobby, that dream that you once felt obsessed with, maybe it served you once, maybe it helped you grow, maybe it gave you confidence when you had none. But now you crave something real, something eternal, something that doesn't just fill your time, but fills your heart. And that's not a loss, that's transformation. When what once excited you starts to feel spiritually empty, it's a divine sign you're being prepared for deeper light. Not louder noise, not bigger distractions, but quieter truth. Your soul is growing up, and what once felt like joy now feels like noise. Because you've tasted a kind of peace that can't be found in temporary highs. So don't force yourself to go back. Don't guilt yourself for feeling different. You're not giving up. You're being pulled forward. You're being invited into a season where your joy won't depend on moments, but on meaning. And that heaviness, that feeling of this isn't it anymore. It's not confusion. It's clarity. It's your fitra awakening. Allah is cleaning your heart from what used to feel like light, but was slowly dimming your connection to Him. And what's coming next won't need to excite your emotions. It will settle your soul. That's the difference between distraction and divine purpose. And now, you're finally ready for the real thing. 3. When you begin disappearing without meaning to. You didn't plan to pull away. It wasn't something you told anyone about. You just started fading. Little by little, you stopped replying right away. You stopped picking up calls that once made your heart skip. You stopped posting, stopped checking, stopped needing to be seen. And you don't even know why exactly. You just know you're tired of explaining your heart to people who only hear your words, tired of smiling out of habit, tired of carrying conversations that don't carry you, so you disappear. Not dramatically, not with anger, but with stillness. Like a wave pulling back from the shore, they think you're distant, they think you've changed, but they don't realize you're in the middle of something sacred. Allah is pulling you inward, and when He wants to begin a deep healing, He first calls you into quiet, not because you're broken, but because noise won't fix what's aching, because people won't understand the battles that live in your silence, because sometimes your soul just needs to be held by something higher than this world. You didn't ask to be invisible, but maybe invisibility is Allah's way of shielding you while He rebuilds you in private. This is not rejection, this is restoration. You don't crave crowds anymore. You crave corners where your chest feels light, where your eyes close in peace, where your heart can speak without judgment. You begin loving the things you used to run from. Quiet nights, soft prayers, being alone under the sky, because something inside you knows. It's not that you're disappearing, you're being preserved, hidden in divine stillness so that nothing can interrupt what Allah is doing inside your heart. You're not who you used to be, and you're not quite who you're becoming. You're in between, and the in-between feels like fading, but it's actually refining. You're not distant. You're being drawn close, not to people, but to Him, the one who sees you, even when the whole world forgets. And while they wonder why you're quiet, Allah knows why your silence is louder than ever, why your tears fall slower, but your sujud feels heavier, why you say less, but feel more. You're not losing your voice. You're learning to speak in a language only the soul understands. This is not your downfall. This is your reintroduction, written by the one who always knew you needed to vanish for a moment to finally return whole. 4. When the ones you defended suddenly become the ones who drain you. You stood up for them when no one else did. You excused their silence. You explained away their distance. You covered their flaws with your loyalty. You made room for them, even when they didn't ask to stay. And every time someone warned you, you looked the other way. You believed in their potential, in the connection, in the bond you thought was bigger than hurt. You told yourself, they're just going through something. They didn't mean it. It's not like that. You defended their absence. You filled in their blanks. You made excuses for the way they made you feel. But now, something inside you is starting to shift. You still love them, but being around them feels heavy. You still care, but every conversation feels forced. You still remember the good, but the bad is starting to outweigh it. You're drained, not because you gave too much, but because they kept taking, without ever pouring back into you. And you wonder, when did this happen? When did the people I protected become the very source of my exhaustion? It didn't happen in one moment. It happened in slow, quiet ways. In the way they stopped listening, but still expected to be heard. In the way they remembered your number only when they needed comfort, but forgot your pain when it was your turn to fall apart. It's painful because your heart was sincere. You didn't love them for attention. You loved them because you saw their soul, even when they didn't see yours. But Allah sees what you've been carrying, the emotional weight, the hidden ache, the quiet tears you shed after smiling through their indifference. And when He loves you, He intervenes. He lets the truth unfold. He shows you the cracks you used to cover with faith. He reveals what you didn't want to admit. This connection is draining your light, and it hurts because you thought they were your people, your comfort, your safe place. But now your soul flinches before you even speak to them. You're not cold, you're not overreacting, you're awakening. You're finally feeling the cost of carrying what wasn't meant to be carried alone. And in this sacred unraveling, Allah is giving you permission. Permission to stop explaining, to stop fixing, to stop bleeding in silence, just to keep a bond alive. That was only one-sided to begin with. You're not abandoning anyone. You're answering a higher call, a call to protect your energy, to protect your peace, to protect the version of you that Allah is preparing in secret. Sometimes He removes people gently, not because they were evil, but because they were no longer aligned with where your soul needs to go. And sometimes the ones you defended the longest become the ones who remind you why you needed boundaries in the first place. Let them go, with love, with peace, with the knowing that your loyalty was never wasted, because Allah saw every unseen sacrifice. And He will never let your sincerity be repaid with sorrow. He removes to make space for what will finally pour back into you. 5. when you start falling into sujud without words. You didn't plan to fall into sujud that night. There were no long doas prepared, no list of requests, no perfect recitation, just a heaviness, a weight in your chest that the world couldn't see, but Allah did. You walked into your room like always, but something inside you broke silently. Not in an angry way, but in that soft, trembling way, when your soul can no longer hold what it never had the strength to carry. So you turned toward the Qibla, and you just dropped. Not because you had something to say, but because your heart couldn't speak. It could only collapse into the only place that still felt safe, the floor beneath you, and the sky above you, and the space in between filled with only Allah. There were no words, only tears, only breaths, only silence. But that silence was full, more full than any loud conversation you've had in months. You didn't ask, you didn't beg, you just existed in sujud, and somehow that was enough. Because sometimes Allah doesn't need your words. He needs your surrender. He already knows the storm inside you, the memories that haunt you, the people you're trying to forget, the dreams that feel like they're slipping, the guilt that weighs heavier than sin itself, the loneliness that no one understands. He knows. And in that moment, when your forehead pressed against the earth and your soul rose quietly to the heavens, something happened. A shift, a release, a silent kind of healing that no therapist could offer and no friend could decode. Your body was still, but your heart was finally moving. Your lips said nothing, but your soul was screaming, Ya Allah, hold me. You didn't have to explain the pain. You didn't have to justify the tears. You didn't have to hide your confusion, because in that sujud you were fully seen, fully known, and fully held by the one who's never turned you away, no matter how long you've been gone. You walked in empty, you left still quiet, but lighter, not because the problems were gone, but because for the first time in a long time, you remembered where home was. Home wasn't the people, home wasn't the solution, home was sujud. Home was the place where your pain met Allah's mercy without needing translation. So if you found yourself falling into sujud with no words left, no strength left, no clarity left, that's not weakness. That's divine love. That's your soul finally remembering that its deepest healing was never going to come from this world. It was always going to come from the quietest sujud, in the quietest night, with the most broken heart, whispering nothing and receiving everything, because the most powerful prayers aren't always spoken. Sometimes they're felt, sometimes they're just the tears that fall when your heart finally bows before its creator. 6. When solitude stops feeling like punishment. At first, it felt like punishment. The silence, the empty phone, the missed calls that never came, the sudden distance from people you thought would be with you forever. You checked your messages less. You opened social media and felt unseen. The gatherings you once craved now just felt like noise you didn't belong to. And in the beginning, you questioned everything. Did I do something wrong? Why am I being cut off? Why is Allah allowing everyone to walk away? But slowly, something began to shift. The silence that once echoed with sadness started to feel like space. The emptiness that once felt lonely began to feel sacred. You stopped trying to fill every moment. You stopped chasing company just to avoid your own thoughts. And without even realizing it, you began falling in love with the stillness that once scared you. You started noticing the breeze again, the way your chest rises and falls, the softness of prayer at 2 a.m. with no one watching, no one needing, no one expecting. You started walking slower, breathing deeper, listening more to your soul, to the quiet, to Allah, and that's when you understood. This solitude wasn't punishment, it was protection. Allah was pulling you out of the crowd, so He could speak to you without distraction. He was turning down the volume of the world, so you could finally hear the voice that's been whispering inside you all along. You used to think connection meant closeness to people, but now you feel connected, just sitting alone on the floor, heart beating, tears falling as you whisper, Ya Allah, and feel like the entire universe just paused to hear your voice. This is not loneliness. This is divine intimacy, because when Allah loves you deeply, He doesn't always surround you with more people. Sometimes He removes them, not out of cruelty, but out of mercy, because He knows. Some people dim your light, some conversations drain your soul, some spaces keep you distracted from the healing He wants to give you. And so, He clears the room, He closes the doors, He wraps you in silence. Not to suffocate you, but to reintroduce you to yourself, to the version of you that you buried beneath constant noise, people-pleasing, and fear of being alone. Now, in this stillness, you can finally breathe, you can finally see, and you can finally begin the kind of healing that only comes when the world stops watching. So if you find yourself alone, don't rush to escape it. Sit in it, let it break you open, let it soften you, let it reveal the peace you've been begging for in all the wrong places. Because when solitude stops feeling like punishment, that's when you'll know Allah isn't keeping people away, He's keeping you close. 7. When your dreams start speaking louder than people. Lately, you've stopped hearing what people say. Their words don't hold the same weight anymore. The compliments feel hollow, the advice feels recycled. Even the voices you used to trust now sound distant, like echoes from a version of you that doesn't exist anymore. But something strange has started happening, something you can't quite explain. When the world grows too loud to understand, your soul starts speaking. In your sleep, you wake up remembering fragments. A road, a door, a face you haven't seen in years, a verse, a storm, a light, and it lingers. Not like a normal dream, but like a message, like something was placed inside your heart. Without words, without noise, without explanation, but it made something shift. You feel different the next day, more aware, more unsettled, more awake. And the people around you, they don't understand. They talk to you like always, but your heart is no longer sitting with them. Because part of you is still trying to decode what you saw when your body was resting, but your soul was traveling. It's not random. This is not your imagination. This is divine communication. This is mercy in disguise. Sometimes when your soul is too tired to hear during the day, Allah speaks to it at night. Not through dreams you can post about, not through visions to impress people, but through soft, sacred symbols, meant only for your heart. Maybe it's a recurring feeling, or a place that doesn't exist in this world, but feels more familiar than your own home. Maybe it's someone long gone, smiling with peace, or a moment that brings you to tears. For reasons you don't understand, that's not coincidence. That's Allah guiding you when your conscious mind is too overwhelmed to listen. Because sometimes the heart opens more in the dark than it ever could in the noise of the day. And your dreams, they are not empty. They are signs, whispers, reflections of your inner state. Gentle instructions from the One who never stops speaking to His servant. Even when the servant forgets how to speak back, you've been asking for signs, begging for direction, waiting for clarity, and Allah has been sending it quietly in the stillest part of the night, where only your soul can hear. So when your dreams start speaking louder than people, listen, not with fear, but with reverence, because your soul is being pulled toward something deeper, something that doesn't require explanation, something sacred, and no one else needs to understand it. Because it wasn't meant for them, it was meant for you, and Allah made sure you would remember it even after you opened your eyes. 8. When your duas begin shifting without you noticing. You didn't even realize it at first. You just found yourself asking for different things. Not louder, not longer, just different, quieter, softer, more real. You used to beg for people, Ya Allah, let them stay. Let them love me. Bring them back. But now, you whisper, Ya Allah, protect my peace. Take away what's not good for me, even if I still want it. You used to ask for success, status, attention. Now you ask for peace of mind. You used to pray to be chosen by others. Now you pray to be chosen by Allah. Something changed. And it happened so gently, you didn't notice the moment it shifted. But your heart did. Your duas no longer sound like desperation. They sound like surrender. Less begging, more trusting. Less, give me everything. More, give me only what brings me closer to you. This is not just emotional growth. It's spiritual awakening. It's a sacred sign that your soul is finally tired of chasing what never filled you and ready to receive what was always meant to sustain you. There was a time you wanted the dunya to fill your heart. Now you ask for the dunya to leave your heart. You don't want to be full of this world anymore. You want to be full of light, full of contentment, full of something eternal. And that shift, that quiet redirection, is a sign of divine nearness. Allah is reshaping your desires from the inside out, without pressure, without fear, just love, just mercy, just presence. Your duas are no longer loud, but they're heavy, not with words, but with truth, because now you ask for things that no one can give you but Him, things that don't glitter, but glow, things that don't impress people, but heal your soul. And that's how you know you're being guided, you're being rewired, not to live for this world, but to walk through it with your eyes on the next. When your duas begin to shift like this, without you forcing it, without you even realizing it, it's a sign that Allah is slowly, gently, removing what used to drain you and replacing it with what was always meant to elevate you. This isn't just a change in prayer, this is a change in you, and it's beautiful, and it's sacred, and it means you're getting closer. Even in your quietest moments, you're returning home. So if everything feels like it's falling apart, maybe it's actually falling into place. If people are leaving, if the joy is fading, if your heart feels quieter than ever before, don't run from it. This is not loneliness. This is sacred transformation. You asked Allah to heal you, but healing rarely comes through comfort. It comes through removal, through shedding, through release. And maybe what you're calling pain is really Allah answering you in a language only your soul understands. So tonight, you don't need to beg for clarity. Just place your head on the prayer mat. Even if you say nothing, let your silence speak. Let your tears testify. Let your stillness be your dua. Because Allah doesn't just hear your words, He hears your exhaustion. He sees what's draining you. And He's already started removing it. Quietly, lovingly, perfectly, and soon, you won't just feel lighter. You'll feel reborn. May Allah remove every unseen burden, every silent ache, every distraction wrapped in beauty, and replace it with peace so deep that it feels like home. Ameen.